I think I'm just a basic good guy who likes people, who worked my ass off. I think I'm very focused on the family, but really pushed hard to have a pretty good run.
All right. Welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. This is where we talk to people, high influential people from all walks of life, all the different things they've done, and just getting to know them better. What not just their successes, but sometimes the challenges. I think a lot of podcasts always talk about everyone's wins, but I think people want to know kind of the backstory of people. I've got Joe Davis here today. Joe, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, buddy.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. I hope the name doesn't imply the stakes of me as a guest. It just occurred to me.
Nope. It just seemed to ring true when we were naming the verbiage of it. We thought that's a good way.
Great to be here.
So Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you've done, your kind of resume, if you will, and we'll kind of go from there.
All right. Well, I better do that short. So, actually, if I think of my business resume, I started 6 years as a paperboy. I had a morning and a night paper out. A lot of your listeners probably don't even know what that is, but we used to deliver newspapers to people's houses, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I spent 6 years at Procter & Gamble in sales, selling shampoo and toothpaste, which was a very humbling experience. And then I went to business school, and from business school, ended up at Boston Consulting Group, BCG, where I worked for 37 years.
Wow.
Quite a lot. Yeah, the wow says it all. That's quite a long time by today's standards. I just wrapped up in January in that formal career. And I like to make sure I mention I've been married 44 years. I've got 4 children, and my 9th grandchild is due in September.
Nice. Congratulations on a lot of wins.
A lot of wins, yeah.
Now, I'm going to take this a little bit of a different direction. And, obviously, when we talk to people, obviously the resume and the successes and the wins are good. But if I were to ask you who you are without the resume, what would you say?
That's an interesting question. You hate to answer that because you don't want to be plugging yourself. I think I'm just a basic good guy who likes people, who worked my ass off. I'm smart enough, of course, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but really pushed hard to have a pretty good run. I would also say, I think I'm very focused on the family, which how being consultant 4 days a week on the road and that go together, one could figure out, but I think that's the way it worked. Reason it worked, because I think people knew I was very focused.
Well, let me ask you this. What is a part of your journey that you've gone through, which obviously it spans, quite a while. What's the stuff that no one sees, no one claps for, but maybe inside of you changed everything?
Inside of me is an intense statement. Well, okay, I'll tell you. There's a couple of things. I'll try to be short. First off, I think I'm a little more. I'm pretty human in the workplace. When I said good guy, and 4 things did that. One, when I did my wedding vows. When I got married at 21 or 22, I cried through my vows. It was embarrassing, but I'll tell you what, and my wife, crystal clear, all these people came up afterwards. Oh, it's so wonderful, the love. And and here I was embarrassed and thought, I didn't realize it then, but there was a message there. Bringing yourself matters. And then my mom died when I was 30. This time I cried through my part of the little talk at the church. The minister said, hey, Joe, that's all right, because tears are the fountains of love. So it was another episode, another moment that just reminded me, bringing your real self. Maybe it's embarrassing, maybe it's not, but quite frankly, it resonates with people. So that's, my parents got divorced at 8. So, the way you ask that, there's probably what someone might argue are setbacks, or not, weddings, not, but, challenges that I managed to find something good out of them. My parents got divorced. I just said, okay, I'm going to be more independent. I didn't say it like that when you're 9 years old, but I could feel it. I could tell that's what was happening. I was mad at my mom. For some reason, I didn't blame my dad because I stayed with my mom. And so I said, damn it all, I'm going to prove I can do it.
Nice. Well, good for you. Was during your career, of you, going into different, obviously, offices, traveling, doing stuff. Was there ever a point that you just wanted to quit, call it, but you didn't? And if not, and obviously the fact that you're here today tells me you didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, what was it that kept you going? Because I think a lot of people, and I don't want to stereotype, but I think a lot of people today are too quick to quit
Yes.
something, and I think there's a lot that we can learn from a generation that didn't quit, and it wasn't an option. What was that for you?
So, actually, let me start with Procter and Gamble as a sales rep. I hated that job. I mean, in and out of grocery stores, trying to convince a store manager to put toothpaste on display. Like, really? I mean, this is what and they
Yeah.
treated you like crap as you're just a sales guy. It was hard. I didn't like it. I mean, got up because I'm one that gets up and goes to work. But I tell you, for that in that one, I just didn't ever believe in quitting. To your point, but my wife, I wanted to quit. She goes, Joe, don't you dare quit. Everybody knows one or two promotions with Procter and Gamble. This is 40 years ago. It's like General Electric, Procter, IBM. One or two promotions with Procter and Gamble, and your whole career is opened up to you. How my 24-year-old wife knew that, I have no idea. But that was actually quite meaningful. She said, "Don't you dare give up." At BCG, I think the thing mainly there was just days on the road. I mean, there was one stretch with 29 days. This was
Wow.
pre-computers, on the road or in the office. We were 100%, and I was burned out. And actually, I did. I was sitting there in a meeting with the partner started beating on me, and I just stood up. I said, "I can't take it anymore. I'm out of here." I didn't quit, but you know what I did do though is I forced it was a Wednesday. I said, I'll see you on Monday. I guess he could have fired me, but I knew I was at a point I was going to break. So either I build my own I build my own, respite here, or I might have quit. Um, so I
So
think,
what did you tell yourself when you were going? Like, I don't know if you remember, but so you said it was a Wednesday. What'd you do Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Like, did you? What went through your head? Do you remember that?
no, this is like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I just took a break. I think I hung out. My wife was at home. I'm a big runner. I probably ran more than otherwise. And I just stepped away. I mean, I don't remember. I probably still did some work at home. Come on.
Yeah.
I think I had to send a signal to myself and to my boss. This is enough. There comes a breaking point, and you just about pushed it.
Yeah. And what's interesting is when you were traveling, there wasn't cell phones, there
No.
wasn't access. We didn't have the amenities, FaceTime, and all the stuff that happens like you and I on a call right now. I mean, everything was so intensive as far as things that had to get done. I don't think people realize all the things that have to get done that we take for granted today.
Oh yeah. Oh, you right. I mean, funny stories. Like I would literally be on the airplane, and we'd have a slide deck because that's consultants, right?
Yeah.
PowerPoint decks, and we'd be editing on the airplane. The second we land, we'd fax it to the secretary. She'd fax it back. We'd edit again while we're running to the client meeting. I mean, that stuff. Now you just type the edits on the plane with Wi-Fi, and then you project it on the screen. I'm just
Yeah.
running one silly thing, but my God. Or my boss used to have said a thing. Said, did the client get the fax? And most people say, yeah, I sent it. He said, I didn't ask you sent it. Because, of course, you put it on the machine. You push
That's
the
a good
button.
that's a good
The machine
perspective.
goes, did the machine receive it? Did someone pick it up off the machine? Did someone give it to the client? Well, I don't know all that. Well, I didn't ask you if you sent it. I asked you if they got it. That's a lot of steps there that you or I would take for granted now because they can
Yeah.
respond in nanoseconds.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question. As you've evolved, is there, when it comes to like mindset and thinking and changing with evolution, is there something that you used to think about what success was that was completely wrong? That maybe now you're like, wow, I was way off on that.
Well, I don't know about wrong, but I do have a different perspective on it. I
Yeah,
mean,
maybe wrong's not the right term. Maybe it's
you know
it's
what?
changed.
What mattered? What changed? Yeah, no. If I now look, I mentioned to you before you call, I had left BCG after 37 years in January. If I look back, I mean, I had nice success. I opened offices, opened practices. The business grew when I ran North America a lot. that's nice. But what really matters is, this guy one time asked me some advice or whatever. I gave it. I don't remember. And 15 years later, he calls back and says, "Hey, I made CEO of such and such company. And it's when you said this and that that kind of changed my trajectory." I always remind them, "No, you're really good yourself." But those kind of moments, those people that I've touched, which I didn't think about at all consciously, for sure, for 30 years or 25 years, maybe I did the last 10. That's what matters. The client names, the people. I remember what we did, but who cares? No offense. No offense to all the work we did, but who cares? But the people you touch and the people you keep in touch with.
Well, I think that, and I'm curious your perspective. I think nowadays, because there's so much less human interaction and there's digital interaction with their digital footprint, I believe that we're in a bit of a trust deficit
Yeah.
because you can't go up and shake someone's hand when you're FaceTiming them around the world. Do you think, I mean, technology makes things happen faster. There's no doubt about it. But do you think that trust deficit is detrimental, or do you think it's just part of the evolution that we're in now and that will never come back?
No, well, of course, it's part of an evolution that I'll agree with, but I
Sure.
don't. I think the thing is, the most exceptional leaders, not just managers and not just bosses, but leaders, will build that trust and do build that trust. They do bring elements, and that's part of what. And the thing that's interesting, to your point, you just said it. Someone, I think you have to bring that to work. And people say, "Oh, is that just the young kids or blah?" I said, "No, the world's changed, and you just described it. Technology has made it impersonal. So, and by the way, always on. So now all of us want to bring a little bit of humanity to work because we have to. We're working from home, and we expect to see a little bit of humanity from our leaders. And so I think that's only going to get worse with AI. There was one meeting where BCG, we had global meeting, but three different locations, and the CEO was a hologram in two of them, and he looked damn real and he sounded real, but he wasn't human. And so, it's going to be get even, well, for sure, with all this stuff coming, it's going to become even more impersonal. Where I think if you're, whatever you are, whether you're a coach, whether you're father, mother, or business leader, the more you can connect humanly with the people, the more you're going to be the one that's the leader remembered and probably have the most success.
It's funny you say that because I believe that with AI and all the technology, everyone's perfect now, right? I mean, even our faces are perfect and our videos can talk without us even talking, and presentations are amazing in 5 seconds. I think the authenticity of being able to communicate is going to be even more valuable. I think that currency, human currency of us being able to talk, because if I wanted to make a video or a presentation, AI can do that within seconds. So everyone has a playing field that's level now. The
Yeah.
only difference is, can you and I communicate with human capital?
Yep.
And I think that that's like, it's almost like the cyclical, right? It's kind of coming back around. Like everything is a cycle.
Yeah.
And I just feel like the technology is actually pushing for the people who can humanly interact, like me being on stage speaking, is, I have people that I coach, and some of them do AI, and their business is AI, and I don't know if hide behind it is the right term, but they use that as their front. And I think to myself, they're losing their skills to communicate.
Right. Right.
And I,
No.
and I think that that's going to be a challenge for people in the future, and it's going to excel the ones who can.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had a conversation with a guy named Roni Abovitz, who founded Mako Surgical, which is the first surgical robotics, and then Magically, the first Oculus. We were just talking about what's the future and how should people, what do you really need to bring, learn as a child, etc. And we all agreed that just the basic programming stuff and all the middle management, AI's taken that, right? So you're gonna, I mean, and we'll always need plumbers and electricians and all those
Yep.
hands. But the need for a real, almost liberal arts training, even though some people don't agree, but the humanistic training is what's going to separate separate folks. You can be
Yeah.
a technical person, or you're going to be the one that sees through it all, communicates, connects with people, inspires and motivates them. So it is, to your point, it is coming around, and I think it's going to make it's you're really going to see that difference as time goes on. Now, I think even today it'll be strong. Even today, I do think the best leaders already are accept. That is part of their package.
Yeah. I think AI is something that is part of our lives. I mean, it's in our
Oh, yeah.
phones. It's in, whether it's being forced upon us or not. I think that it's going to be there. I just wonder, when it comes to figuring out who we are, what are our skill sets, like you had said it, and I agree with you. I think the skill sets that are going to be in the highest demand and probably the highest paid are plumbers, electricians, trade industries, because
Yeah.
I don't think AI can put a roof on yet. I don't think it can unclog a toilet or fix a drain breaking. So there's some human interaction that will go to the highest bidder. And I think trade schools, I'm a big believer in that, a lot of us will not be able to communicate or get past that, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. No, and this anyone I talk to who lives in that world, absolutely. Those fields won't go away. But then the
No.
field, and then those that see through all the AI and interpret it, and that's going to be the next. That'll be the other people that manage to do well. Let's say that.
Yeah, I hear a lot about logistics of, the Amazon type logistic degrees, understanding how that works, because
I mean the logistics, like supply chain, literally.
correct. Yeah. Sorry. Supply chain. I hear that's another big thing, because it's basically vaporizing the human interaction inside of supply chain. You're probably familiar with that with, Procter and Gamble, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny. My brother-in-law's a 3M engineer. Well, he just retired a few years ago, but he's a private consultant now. And right now, he's working with a company who's making stuff like that, and he's helping them to create the supply chain that has no people involved, the production line that has no people involved. So there's going to be no people, and you still need all the fails. You still need. They said, we want you to help us think this through, because you'll worry about what could go wrong, what could break, whereas the programmer will program real fast, create something cool, but then it breaks here and it breaks there, and now you got problems. Your company doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
And
there is,
listen, as an airline pilot, it's something as well of, you know, could they do it? Well, they run drones in the military for, in the war. So do I want to be in the back of one? I don't know. I have a hard time being in the back of an Uber that doesn't have a driver. I don't know if I want to be at 35,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean with that. That's just me. But I mean, I think there's some fear, but I think 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it wasn't even on the table of discussion.
no.
Now we're discussing it, going, well, what would we accept? Would we accept one pilot and AI? And then that's one gone. So I think,
Yeah.
listen, I am amazed every time I order something on Amazon that it shows up the same day.
Oh,
It just blows my mind. I don't care where I am. It happens. I'm like, that is amazing that happens that way. So
yeah, it's
it,
pretty stunning.
yeah,
That is stunning, as you said.
yeah,
Your pilot thing's funny, because I remember when they first started UL two, the self landing, and I fly all the time, and I
yeah,
thought, oh my, so the computer's going to land us. And I thought, well, maybe that's okay, because the computer's probably more reliable than the human if he doesn't feel well or something. But if there's an emergency, I'd rather have the human in that plane. It's just
yeah. Because
the
it's doing the problem solving
data.
scenarios. Yeah. And there's something to be said for that. Just like a plumber trying to fix what's wrong with the sewage line.
You can do it. You can do some of it yourself. You can do some of it with YouTube, but you can't do it all.
Yeah.
It'll be funny, because even if we all knew the plane could fly better by technology, I think the days of no one up front and us getting on that plane, those get a long ways away, buddy.
Yeah. Now, they used to say the same thing about an elevator operator.
Oh,
They
that's
wouldn't get
funny.
an elevator without an elevator operator pushing the button. It wasn't safe.
Okay.
So it's what are we willing
It
to
will
accept?
change. Yeah, well, it will change. But
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Now, you're enjoying your life. What what version of you, success wise, would you say you're chasing now? Like, what are you doing now for that version of you in this season of your life?
yeah, I think at this stage, well, I'm 8 months in, so I'm partly, it's partly thinking about it, but
Sure.
it's very clear. I mean, when you get closer to retirement, many of your listeners probably rolling their eyes, but you think about, okay, what is it? What's your purpose? Or you could use the word, what gets you up? What gets you up in the morning? It's the same kind of thing. They better align. And right now, I am really chasing, how can I continue to give back to others, and to help them grow and be the best they can be. And probably more in the business context, because that's where I spent my life. That's what I love doing, is seeing people really humming. And it's not as easy when the platform isn't obvious, in the work environment. So that's what I'm, quote unquote, chasing, whatever that word means. Now, at the same time, I mentioned not the grandchildren, helping them be the best they can be. I realize is
Yeah.
fulfilling too, to be honest with you. So the time's got to be balanced.
Well, that's the selfless side, right? That's kind of the evolution of life.
Yeah, of course.
And I think we could look at your life and say that you have freedom, right? Is there any way that you define freedom now compared to maybe how it was 5 years ago? Is it different now that you've stepped into this new phase?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it's a funny thing. Just very, very practically, I I can get up and do nothing all day if I don't want to. I don't have to do a damn. I've got to eat, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't have to. It's really a weird concept. Now, I did well enough that I can say that. So, but I think the other thing one thinks about when you say freedom is, okay, now I'm free to do what I want. So what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not just going to sit around and watch TV. I mean, I wouldn't, so that you can call it freedom, but it's probably the next version of not a chain, but the yoke you carry is, because, since I want to make sure I'm giving back, I want to feel like I'm humming, and then I want to live longer. So you want to stay sharp and be active, all the stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing I find different, sorry, well, you said we were going to meander. We're meandering.
Yeah.
I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I very consciously work on staying connected with my friends, and not just Zoom, that's fine, or the telephone, but physically. In March or April, we took a trip out west, and Sarah said, "What are we doing?" I said, "We're just going to see all of my friends on the West Coast and your friend." What? I said, "Yeah." And we had we just organized breakfast, lunch, and now we ate too much for like 5 days.
Yeah.
You usually hang out with people at meals because they're still.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing I'm really thinking a lot about is, not my family, because I'm with them all the time, but how do you consciously stay connected with those that you care about? And it is freaking hard, because if they're still in the day job, you know what that means. I mean, you're up in the airplane, I can't get you when you're off on your 4-day jaunts or whatever. So, you got to work on the 3 days in between.
So, and it's funny, I think about people that I coach, and they're trying to maybe do something a little bit different in marketing to stand out. And I tell them something and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so smart." I don't think it is. I'm like, "Why don't you write them a handwritten letter?" And they're just like, "Wow, I never thought of that." I'm like, let's just do something different, a pattern interrupt, whatever you want to call it. But let's do something different. When's the last time you've gotten a handwritten letter that's not like inked in digital? It's a regular good old envelope that you go to the mailbox and you get it. How much? I mean, think about that, right? That's the same thing as you're saying of just going and seeing your friends.
I even had dinner with them face to face. Oh, it's funny because I still handwrite a note on every Christmas card, and it's personalized. It's their name, and I think about something to do with them, and I was sending up to 5,000 cards when I was leading North America. Now I'm down to about 3, and I'm going to get to a smaller group. But it's just amazing. It's just like, feel like, oh my, and now where's my card with the note from Joe? It's just it's so unusual.
Yeah.
That's a very good thing to tell them. I think that's really wise. Just make sure the letter gets there in the snail mail.
Did they get it? That's like you said. Did they get the fax? Did they actually get the letter? Yeah, I agree. And you were saying earlier when we talked in the pre-call that you'd wrote a book, correct?
Yeah.
What's the book about?
It's about this topic we're talking about. It's called The Generous Leader. It's 7 ways to give of yourself for everyone's gain. And it's really, I define a generous leader as someone who gives of themselves freely without expectation of direct personal benefit, help others grow, develop, and thrive at their full potential. And it's, you could say, oh, that sounds like unicorns and fairies, I mean, clouds and all this, but it's not. You still have to get results. I'm not saying don't get results. You don't get results, you don't keep your role as a leader. However, the best way to get those results, I think the only way to get them, unless you have a single shop or something, or you're a technical guy that does everything by yourself, is with your teams. And so if they're humming, you're humming. It's just back to your AI thing. So my basic premise, I mean, the basic premise of this is bring your human self to work. People expect it. And it's just, I think it started with the BlackBerry, and you and I are talking about how AI is just going to accelerate it. I mean, the world did change. If you remember IBM, white shirt, blue suit, cog in the wheel, 9 to 5, those days are over. I don't know if, I assume you're at home versus an office, but I don't talk to many people that are in an office these days.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What is your definition? So the generous leader, what is your definition of leadership?
That's a good question, because I think, a few things. I think my definition of leadership at the core is inspiring and motivating, or giving people comfort on the direction to go, and making sure they go there, as a team, as effectively as they can, bringing all the best out from them, which then has a lot of things. Leadership, the leader, whether it's with the team or not, has got to set some kind of vision and some kind of path. So I'm not saying that's not critical. The leader has to make sure you set metrics and, deadlines and blah, blah, blah. But I also think the other place the leader has to bring is, the heart, is really connecting with folks and helping them to grow and develop.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think leadership is top down, talking down to people and pushing the string. I think of it. And I think being a leader, and as your book is called, The Generous Leader, I think it's more about being selfless, and making sure that everyone has what they need. Yep. I just believe a good leader is always making sure that everyone is taken care of. They understand whatever the vision is, the mission, strategy.
Their role, what's expected of them. I mean, there's a lot of these pieces. Absolutely.
So based on what you've learned, is there something that maybe a truth that you now know, that you maybe learned along the path that you just wish somebody would have told you earlier that you would have learned?
I think, there's a number of truths, and I think we already talked about being more vulnerable and authentic. I think that's one truth that I learned earlier. I was lucky, but people got to figure out what that means and do that. The other truth, though, I guess I'd say that I wish I'd learned earlier is really to be an exceptional listener. And I'm going to put two parts to it, because part of it is understanding where's this person coming from? What are they thinking? Why are they asking this question? Why are they saying, what's in there, and what are they really saying? Not just what I think they're saying or what I think they should hear. The other part, though, which I really wish I'd learned earlier, is have the patience to listen. I don't know about you, but sometimes you think you know where the person's going, like all the time. And then you cut them off 2/3 of the way through to answer, to respond, to say and one, is completely disrespectful. But two, you may be wrong. And now you just goofed because you lost the opportunity to learn more about where they were. You may go off on the wrong path, etc. So for me, I wish people had really pounded into me, shut your damn mouth and just listen.
I think it goes back to the 2 ears, 1 mouth ratio. And I think sometimes there's two types of people: the ones that are listening to talk and the ones that are listening to learn. Most people are just listening to talk and they're not paying attention.
Yeah. And even if you're listening to learn, sometimes you think, okay, I got it, and jump in. And that's in between. That's just still not acceptable. It's, I tell just a funny story. I don't know, maybe 25 or 30 years into my BCG career, I was talking to the general counsel about something in a meeting, and she was saying something to me that was going to want an answer, and I cut her off partway through, and she stopped. She goes, "Joe, would you just shut the blank up and let me finish?" I mean, really. And she goes, "You do this all the time to me." So, and 30 years in, I still was doing it. And I wish someone had said, "Would you just shut the blank up?" And she just slapped me. She didn't hit me. It was, I wish I had heard that when I was 27. Now, I don't think I was terrible at it, obviously, but I don't think I was as good as I'm a hell of a lot better after she gave me that lecture.
Any, so you've had a long career. You've obviously had a lot of successes. Any regrets that like, that you're still working to let go of, that you're still kind of processing that? I mean, maybe you have none. I think most people have some sort of regret somewhere in their business life that you're like, man, I wish I would have taken that path, or, come to terms with.
Oh, it's, I don't think I have any regrets really, the way you said it. I mean, there's a lot of other things that might have been cool to do differently. That's different. Oh, one just slipped. Oh, this sounds silly, but BCG you run for CEO. We elect our CEO from the
Oh,
partnership.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I don't know, 2 elections ago, I was still there. And I was ahead of North America. So it's a global vote. There's a lot of votes around the world. So who knows? But I probably had a chance, that a little chance. I wish I had run. And another friend who had a bigger chance, although he still lost, said, Joe, if you run, we'll split the Americans' vote, and then we both lose. And I regret not running, actually. Maybe I would have lost, but I wish I'd thrown my hat in the ring. I kind of, often step back to and I don't regret it that much. Hey, I was head in the BCG North America.
Sure.
That was pretty cool. It didn't change your income. I would have worked a hell of a lot harder, and flown all over the world. So, but if you really asked me, actually, that's interesting. It's the first time if you'd asked me this 6 years ago, I don't know. I loved my job. I don't think I did. Um, that probably is a little bit of a regret that I didn't. So let me put it this way: there was a chance to put my hat in the ring for something bigger, and I didn't take it. And now, would I have wanted it at that age? I'm not sure, but put that aside. That's the regret.
So let me ask this. So based on that, any advice you'd give to people watching this, going, hey, like,
Well, yeah, no, I think if you have a chance to put your hat in the ring for something and you're afraid of it, you think you won't get it, you're not sure it's for you, I'd still put your hat in the ring. I mean, and I'll tell you, these people, all the executives I interviewed for my book, every single one of them said their career, they're mostly corporate, their career took a path they didn't expect. Joaquin Duato, now the CEO of J&J, he expected to be the head of Europe for pharmaceuticals. But instead, they made him the head of medtech in Spain. And he was a pharmaceutical guy. So he wasn't happy. But it was a move. Someone was thinking about, no, you've done pharmacy. Now we need you in medtech. Another friend wanted to be the chief financial officer because that's what she knew real well. And the CEO said, no, you're going to be the chief CMO, the chief marketing officer. She said, I don't know that stuff. He said, therein the point. Now she's the CEO and knew very well. So all of them thought they were going that path. And there was someone said, no, you're going that way, my friend.
huh.
They all.
So how many people did you interview for the book?
Oh, probably 12 deeply. No, and it was deep. Go ahead.
What were you saying?
Oh, well, I was going to say it was deep. Like, I talk to people, but, these are people I think are what I define as a generous leader. And I'd push them hard. Well, why are you like that? Oh, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, 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 no. Why? Where did it come from? And almost always went back to their mom or their dad. Almost always. Pretty interestingly.
What was there anything that just surprised you or shocked you? I'm not trying to ruin the book, but like
No,
the behind the scenes that you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say surprised or shocked, but some things that just stood out consistently. I mean, one, I talked to you about listening. Every single one of these people said the most important trait is ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, and listen. And, not what you said about I'm the boss, you do what I say, not a single.
Right.
And these are CEO Marriott, CEO United Airlines, Scott Kirby. He's a great guy, by the way. So that was that was one thing that was consistent. They all were willing to not know it all. I mean, Scott tells a good story when COVID hit. You guys, no one knew when you were going to fly again, and he said he was going to go talk to the entire ops group by video or whatever. And he said, I'm going to tell him I'm not sure. And his team said, you can't say that. You got to be in charge. You have to know the answer. So what do you want to get up there and tell them we're going to fly in 23 days and 2 minutes? We don't. And so the willingness to say, I don't know, was pretty consistent. I would have expected that from these type of leaders, but
Right.
top. Um, the other the other thing I'd say, which I'm a big believer in, the small acts, big impact. I mean, you talked about writing a letter,
Yeah.
that's say happy birthday to everyone on your team on their birthday. Whether you just do it by email means a lot. Write an email that tells a person job well done and copy the rest of the team or copy your boss. It's a big deal, bigger than a promotion. Not all of the executives, Scott's a big believer in that. Not all of the executives do that, which surprised, or I couldn't get him to explain, like, do you do that? Oh, no, I don't think so. Now, I just wonder if they do it and not even know it. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know. But that surprised me because it's such a, grabbing moments to really congratulate or applaud or make someone feel really good for something they did is so valuable.
Yeah. I remember our old CEO back in the day, Gordon Bethune. He was really, really good. He would remember your name. And I don't know how, but I mean, thousands and thousands. He would come up to the flight deck. Hey, Steve, how you been? What? And you're like, how does he remember? He just, for whatever reason, he did. Maybe he looked it up before, but you'd be walking in the terminal and he would remember you. And maybe it was, I don't know how that happens, but it was very impressive that he remembered everybody and certain situations with people he would remember, and it just felt good. It just
Oh,
made you feel special.
if you're one who's able to remember names like that, I think it's a little bit of a gift.
Yeah,
It's golden. I agree with you. It is. My wife's like that, and she also remembers. Oh yeah, she might have met someone 6 years ago. Yeah, and you talked about blank. Did he blank? How's that going? They look like, you remember that? And she
yeah,
just like, yeah. I mean, she doesn't know why it's unusual. The rest of us can't remember what happened yesterday. You and I didn't know what day it was when we started this call.
yeah.
Like,
Exactly. Good point.
it is.
Yeah. So let me ask this as we kind of wind down here on the questions. Someone who's gone through a lot, if there's somebody watching this or listening to this and they're in a bit of survival mode, is there a truth in your mind that they need to hear? Something that you can say, hey guys, this is as sure as the sun is coming up, as sure as your name is going to be Joe tomorrow. Is there a truth that you would say, hey, this is the truth and this is reality?
Well, you just stole the thing I would have said, which is you will. I mean, unless you've got something, you get hit by a bus. Well, put that aside. You
Sure.
will be here tomorrow. I mean, that's how I got through. I remember high school and college and finals. You're freaking out. I thought, okay, I'll study the next couple of days. I'll take a 2-hour test. I will be there at 4:30 that day after the test. It is just fine. It's going to be fine. And I think maybe that's the truth. Is it's going to be fine. It may not be exactly what you expected it to be. I talked about those executives,
Yep.
but it's going to be fine. Now, obviously, that's not always true. The other truth you said, it's not a truth, but the other piece of advice I'd get if you're really in that kind of place, depending on what it is, but is just stop, slow down, look at all the things you think you need to do, and pick the one that you think is most important, and just go do that and get it done and and that enables you to keep moving forward if you're just in crisis mode. Now, I'm not talking about mental health crisis. I'm just talking about, you're stuck in the
Sure.
world.
Yeah. And is there a, speaking of truths, is there a truth that you live by even when no one's watching, when you're by yourself? Is there just something that those core values that you will not bend on?
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds a little arrogant, but I do my entire career, and I think today, I care a lot about everybody else. I'm
Hmm.
not as magical as my wife at it, but I'm really thinking now it's like, how's that grandkid feeling? How's that feel? How's my daughter feeling?
Sure.
But at work, I would constantly think, okay, she told me about her son. I wonder what's going on with her son. It'd fleetingly go through because I didn't have time for it, but is constantly thinking about the one truth is thinking about others and how they're doing.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, that
And
sounds.
now, even though you're retired, you're doing some speaking, going around. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we talked earlier about what do you want to keep doing, and I just want to. I mean, this book, the goal of the book for me is to try to get people to bring the human self, or the heart, as you said, the servant side of you, to your leadership. I think we need it now, and it'll make you a better leader. So that's where I have opportunities to speak to folks about that. I'd love to speak to like 60-person, 80-person management teams is kind of fun. I've given a few giant keynotes, but that's not as interesting. I mean, you seem to be a very dynamic guy. I'm not quite sure I'm as dynamic as you, but
I'm sure you could.
but
I'm sure you could show me a couple things.
so that's what I'm trying to do. Is just help others to continue to grow. It makes me feel pretty
good. I like it. I like it. Well, Joe, it's definitely been a pleasure. I appreciate it. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to find you and get your book and maybe book you for some speaking gigs, how do they get a hold of Joe?
Well, two things. Well, you can buy the book on Amazon if you want the book, but I do check LinkedIn. I do check that little messages thing up there. And if you send a message, you're not trying to look for a job, I will give you my email and then we'll be connected. When I was at BCG, it was always about, are you hiring? I just didn't. Or I have a website, very simple, joedavis.com, and there's a little contact form there, but I have a lot easier to just send a message on LinkedIn. I will respond.
All right. And one last question I always ask, if you could sit down and have a conversation, a coffee, a drink, a whiskey, whatever you want to call it, with someone dead or alive, who would you have that with?
I have an answer to that, but it might be controversial, which is the current administration. I don't know what his role is. Steve Miller, the one of the two. There's two guys behind this administration, him and Ron Pope. And, I'm sure he's a brilliant guy. I don't agree with everything he's doing. So I'd just be curious for this brilliant guy, what is it he's after? What does he want?
Sure.
I mean, is it self-serving? Does he actually believe better for the country? I mean, why deport an American by accident and find that not horrendous? I would just love to talk about that. Now, that's not as interesting as Mother Teresa, but it just would be very fascinating to understand how a brilliant person like that and I could not see the world in the same place at all. I would like to do that. That's political.
It's definitely interesting seeing what drives different people's perspectives in life, right? And I don't think inherently anyone's evil or bad. I just think people have different viewpoints and I mean, listen, beliefs. When you think about people's beliefs, people go to war and die over their beliefs.
Yeah. No.
So it just shows how strong people's belief patterns are.
No, and I'm sure the people believe there's something good coming, or there's a goal here. And so what am I? Yeah, that's what it would be. Very fascinating. Now we'd have to make sure it's an honest conversation, or it'd be useless. Because we'd have to share. People aren't necessarily saying what they believe. In a real conversation, they say it on social media, screaming, yelling. That's not the same.
Yeah, I would say it's not an intelligent conversation. We'll say that.
Right.
All right, cool.
Very
well, Joe, again, thank you so much for being on the show, High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. I really enjoyed our conversation. And for those of you that are watching, if you want to reach Joe, you can go to his website, joedavis.com. You can get his book on Amazon, Generous Leader, right?
The Generous Leader. Yep.
The Generous Leader on Amazon. And if you like this episode, please share it, like, subscribe. And on behalf of Joe and myself, I want to thank you for watching another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, and we will catch you next time.